Good evening and welcome to the Weeknight. I'm Alicia Menendez with Michael Steele and Symone Sanders Townsend. Breaking tonight, the Senate quickly passes the bill to force the release of the Epstein files. The latest on this rapidly developing story and whether Trump actually plans to sign it.
Then a horrendous display in the Oval Office as the president defends Mohammed bin Salman and dismisses concerns about the U.S. intelligence linking him to the death of journalist Jamal Khashoggi.
And later, more breaking news as a federal court blocks Republicans' gerrymandered congressional map in Texas. What that could mean for Trump's plan to rig the midterms in his favor. But we begin with that breaking news. The bill to force the Justice Department to release the Epstein files will soon go to Donald Trump's desk. Yes, tonight, Senate Democrats pressured their Republican counterparts to pass the Epstein Files Transparency Act by something that's called unanimous consent, meaning the Senate accepts the House version of the bill as written. Once the Senate physically receives the resolution, it will immediately head to Trump.
Donald Trump has tried to cover up for Jeffrey Epstein long enough. It's time that the Senate finish the job to finally compel the Department of Justice to release the Epstein files. We will pass the House's bill without changes, without delay, and we will finally get this done.
This afternoon, the House voted 427-1 on the bill, with a lone Republican opposing. The overwhelming bipartisan support for the transparency comes after the president flinched. Remember, the White House and Speaker Johnson spent months trying to scuttle this bill. Their flip-flop has the Wall Street Journal claiming, quote, Trump's grip on Republicans shows first sign of slipping. But it remains to be seen if this Republican revolt will translate into other aspects of the president's agenda. But what is clear today is that this vote happened. Accountability is coming increasingly closer to reality, and that is thanks to the persistent voices of the survivors of Epstein's abuse, who have demanded our government act. And finally, the government listened. Joining us now is Democratic Congresswoman Lateefah Simon of California. She is a member of the House Oversight Committee.
Congresswoman, welcome back to the table. It's been a while, but what a great moment to have you here on the heels of what happened on the Hill today.
Absolutely.
You and Congresswoman Presley have been a leading voice in working with these survivors and sort of helping to shepherd this moment in the House, despite the fact that the Speaker of the House was how should we say, absent on the idea of helping the survivors instead of protecting pedophiles. So here we are, 427-1.
Yes.
What do you think happens next? What's the next movement once it gets to the Senate? We suspect you and I were talking a little bit a moment ago about the Justice Department trying to, gum up the works by redacting the documents once the president signs the order and just basically sending out blank pages with a lot of redacted space. What do you think operationally makes the most sense moving forward to keep the momentum going that these survivors have created by their presence, their voice, and making sure that, as Symone noted, there's accountability?
One of the things that I heard from the survivors today, I was with them earlier, they said it clearly, that it's going to take women to lead a new revolution in this country where victims and survivors are centered, they are heard, they're respected, and the monsters who beat and rape and traffic them are held to account. So what you're seeing today is what victims and survivors deserve all over the country. But I will say this, it was Representative Summerlee on the Oversight Committee that initially pushed for the subpoena. We got the votes. It was a black woman who moved this forward. And I think, and I'm pretty sure of this, as folks voted today, they went to the well in support of these survivors. The United States of America, the folks from the highest office to folks on every blade throughout this country need to also come to the well and hear women, see women, and provide support and network and opportunity. We will continue fighting the Justice Department if, in fact, they choose not to step forward and do the right thing. But again, listen to the victims. adhere to the voices of the survivors. That is the most moral thing that the leaders in this administration can do. And if they don't, it's clear where they are.
Right.
Congresswoman, listening to the survivors, I think it's very clear that the House Oversight Committee specifically has been the driver of a lot of it's the driver of this vote that happened today.
Absolutely.
And the Democrats on the House Oversight Committee, you all have been committed to moving the ball forward, even when maybe the rest of Congress, your Republican counterparts, have not done so. There was some news out of the House Oversight Committee today that you all have subpoenaed, similar in the way in which you subpoenaed the Epstein estate and the Department of Justice and the White House, actually, that you all have subpoenaed JP Morgan Chase and Deutsche Bank. Is there more you can tell us for their financial records as it relates to Jeffrey Epstein? What more can you tell us about those efforts coming out of the House Oversight Committee and what we should be looking for going forward? And what are you looking for to come out of the materials you could receive from any of these financial institutions?
Listen, under the leadership of Robert Garcia, who's the ranking member, he's a Dem, our Dem leader on the Oversight Committee, we've been clear that anyone and everyone who capitulated, who held these women in a space where they could not fend for themselves, whether it be a bank, whether it be a Democrat or a Republican, if you in fact had anything to do with the rape and trafficking of these girls. I have a 14-year-old girl. She's a girl, not a woman, not a young woman. Anyone who had anything to do with what happened in this scheme, in this tragedy, should be held to account. So all stones must be unturned. There are financial records. Again, these women have been working to find truth, to connect leaders who would believe them for 30-plus years. So we're going to not only continue to fight, we're going to find answers, and we're going to hold folks accountable. That's our job.
You know, I had this little quip that my colleagues at the table, we kind of laugh about when this conversation began over the summer, where these voices, these women really kind of crystallized the moment. And my thing was, you know, given what the speaker wanted to do, it's time to free the Epstein 218, right?
Yeah.
Well, they are freed, but there's still more work, as you've indicated, to do. What the women today, I think, expressed a very compassionate moment for the country.
Yes.
And I think it was reflected in the vote, 427
That's right.
members of the House voting on this. What should we be taking away from those survivors and their voices? Because we still have the problem that they have to do what they have to do to get people to listen.
It's ridiculous.
I mean, Symone has, and Alicia for the last few months have been, every time this subject has come up, has been emphasizing that point, I think, to great degree. What should we take away from their voices to snap us out of this construct that has largely been created by men to protect men?
That's right.
How do we break this finally?
Well, again, I think today is representative of what thousands of leaders all over the country have been fighting for God knows how long. Not only do we center and we believe women, and we hold to account the folks who have seen them as disposable, we need to ensure that Democrats and Republicans make a commitment today that not only will we hear them, but that we will fight and procure resources for all victims and survivors in this country. That they are not only deserving of an audience, but they're deserving of public policy from every city, every county, and the highest level of government right behind us to not only see them, but make amends. And we cannot, and I refuse, with my 30 years of working for survivors on the streets, refuse to be a part of a society that doesn't honor folks who are literally survivors of violence. We are literally buying and selling little girls on the street in every single city across this country. I don't care, Democrat and Republican. It's time to literally free the girls. And what that means is changing how we work and 100% being able to tell a young woman, if you speak up, if you want to leave a tragic situation, we got you. These women have been fighting literally just to be heard for 30 years. And I will tell you, from organizations from Oakland, California to Louisiana, all the way up to New York and all in between, this work of ensuring that our girls, our young people are safe, it's center to what we call a democracy. If you have a violent culture that continues to really make sure that young people are afraid to speak up, what can we say? We can no longer pathologize young people who are being raped and trafficked. It's over. We actually have to listen to them.
Congresswoman Lateefah Simon, thank you so much for being with us. Let's bring in Eddie Glaude, a professor at Princeton University and MS Now contributor. The arc of history, is it bending toward justice here?
I don't know. We want to revel and celebrate the fact that these victims are being heard, they're being seen, that the possibility of justice is in view. But I don't want us to get ahead of our skis. Donald Trump didn't have a come to Jesus moment. The politics were what they are. The field was clear to him. But we don't know what's going to happen when this gets to his desk. We don't know what's coming down the pike. So I want to celebrate this moment after 30 years. But I also want us to not overestimate the shift in the political landscape. Donald Trump is weaker. That much is true. But we have to continue to fight to see what happens next.
Part of the way in which you know that he is weaker is the way that he is suddenly reaching for any talking point that is available to him and constantly sort of re-messaging this. This is what he had to say today about the Epstein files.
As far as the Epstein files I have nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. I threw him out of my club many years ago because I thought he was a sick pervert. But I guess I turned out to be right. And what the Epstein is a Democrat hoax to try and get me not to be able to talk about the $21 trillion that I talked about today. It's a hoax.
It's amazing the number of things that are hoaxes in this administration. It's amazing the way in which he didn't know him. Now he knows him. Now he's a hero of this story. And fundamentally, the fact that he could release these files today. He is watching this and recognizes that this is well within his power.
Absolutely. Donald Trump, we have to admit it, the president of the United States lies like he breathes. So we have to take him for what he's saying, right? And not to kind of give it any ounce of truth. We know what he's going to try to do. He's going to try to distract. He's going to try to deflect. He's going to project. He's going to do all of those things. And that's why I said we need to be very, very careful. And earlier, right, I said that we need to be very, very careful how we read the moment. He's weaker, indeed. But I also want us to understand the kind of conjuncture here. Not only are we talking about the victims, the trafficking, the rape of young girls, we're also talking about, with that, the evidence, the clear evidence of the influence of money in our politics. There are all of these folks who are orbiting around Epstein, right? And they might not even be engaged in the ugly, horrible, evil things that he's doing. But it is his money, his oversized influence that are leading folk from the Democratic side, the Republican side, to engage this guy. And unless we understand the connection, the interrelationship between sex, money, and power, we won't get at the heart of how these women were made vulnerable.
That's right.
You know, well, the Congresswoman just gave you an amen over here, Eddie. I think you have hit the nail on the head. And what I heard from the very brave women who stood before the American people today on that a very cold day here in Washington, D.C. this morning, to tell their stories, is that this for them is about the systems of power, and they don't care. Many of them said that they were Republicans who voted for the president, and that they do not care, that we should be about the business of getting to the heart of this. And I think what's so disparaging, frankly, and the Congresswoman talked about for nearly 30 years, I'm 35 years old. So for almost as long as I have been alive, these women who once were girls have been fighting a system, and the system across 5 different presidential administrations have protected these men. What in the, I mean, the weight of that just kind of knocks me back, and it's like, well, dang.
Yeah, you know, I think when I think about it, the moral question takes us to the heart of this issue. And what we know, Symone, is that the most vulnerable among us are often subject to the most cruel behavior. Right. They are open to cruelty in ways that many people don't care about because they're out of view. And so part of what I'm trying to get us to see is that it's easy to scapegoat Donald Trump. Let me say it differently. It's easy to exceptionalize him so that we don't pay attention to structures. And there is something that's running parallel with the evil that we are unmasking with Epstein. And that is how money corrupts so much of what we do. And it makes the most vulnerable among us even more vulnerable. And we have to tell that story as clearly and as loudly as we possibly can.
Representative Simon, I want to go back to something that the professor said, which is this idea that this story is still developing. This story is not over. We do not know what happens next. I think a lot of that is going to fall to your committee, to the Oversight Committee, to keep up the pressure on this administration to actually release the files or in any other way pursue justice for these survivors. Can you give us a sense of the conversation you were having inside the committee about what that's going to look like?
We are not going to stop fighting for these survivors until justice is achieved. I want to also respond to my dear professor. You're talking about structure, and you're absolutely right. If a case of this magnitude has gone on for with 3 decades, can you imagine what young people in rural and urban America who have nothing, what they experience in trying to get justice? So what these victims and survivors are doing is a deep service for young people who are trapped in systems. They must be believed. We must hold those monsters accountable. And we will continue to fight because it is about the Epstein survivors. And it's also about the work that they are doing in communities all over this country and lifting up the voices of young women who refuse to not be heard. So the struggle continues. We're not going to stop on the Oversight Committee. We'll get justice for these women.
Congresswoman Lateefah Simon, thank you very, very much for your time.